genocide, Holocaust, crackdown, etc., etc. Every Kashmiri is familiar with these terms. It started with the forced exodus of Kashmiri Pandits from that place, and then many things followed. Unfortunately, we have been very selective and subjective in portraying the picture of Kashmir over the last 30 years. I had my own considerations and my own prejudices and biases. So, in fact, an agenda. So, Mr. Sushil Pandit sitting over here, he had his own biases and prejudices, and so we kept brushing under the carpet certain things and spoke about many, many things according to our convenience. That said, I don't want to repeat what Dr. Changu has written or what I have written about or on Kashmir. I think post August 5, 2019, the scenario has changed, and now a host of measures should be actually taken to end this bloody conflict in Kashmir, which is orchestrated, engineered, sponsored by Pakistan. There's hardly any doubt about it. Where we are lagging far behind is actually about the management of perceptions in Kashmir, sir. That is something which actually disturbs me individually and personally. Because every gruesome act committed by the other side is being attributed to the security forces or to Indian intelligence agencies, etc., etc. And till date, we have no mechanism, institutional mechanism in place to counter this propaganda in Kashmir. Let's talk about 2019 happenings in Kashmir. From local to national to international media, everybody kept talking about clampdown, curfew, harassment, etc., etc. When you look at the statistics, you will find out that, yes, of course, at the beginning, the administration took some very harsh measures to restrict the movement of people in order to maintain law and order in the streets of Jammu and Kashmir Valley. But it was September 3rd when the state administration started withdrawing the restrictions and tried to bring some kind of normalcy in the streets. But the other side took advantage of it and they played it fully. They issued threats, they killed, they maimed people, they destroyed properties, they killed fruit growers, they killed fruit merchants, they killed truck drivers, they killed non-resident laborers. But the narrative remained the same. Indian state has oppressed and suppressed, and it has muzzled the voices in Kashmir. Nobody is being allowed to talk about this thing or that thing, etc., etc. The statistics suggest that around 48 killings happened during that period to December 2019, and all the killings were actually committed by the terrorist groups. But nobody spoke about it, nobody wrote about it. So what we actually need to do in Kashmir is to somehow change the perception. And how you will change the perception? You need to propagate your ideas. You need to counter that deadly ideology which emanates from the soil of Pakistan, which has contaminated the atmosphere in Jammu and Kashmir. You need to counter that vociferously by employing all the resources available with the state. One. Recently, District Development Council elections were held in Jammu and Kashmir. The participation was impressive. Of course, again, I should admit that, yes, the other side, the Pakistan was somehow, they allowed it to happen. Otherwise, one single killing of a contestant, it would have derailed the process. But they allowed it to happen because the so-called mainstream political parties, they had just formed that PAGD kind of thing, and the narrative was the same which the separatists would have propagated during that period if they were allowed to do so. So Pakistan allowed them to propagate that idea because somehow it was close to whatever they wanted in Kashmir ideologically, or to keep their narrative relevant in Kashmir. What does that mean? That simply means we are talking about the rigging of election of 1987, and since 1990, Pakistan and its proxies in Jammu and Kashmir have been continuously rigging the elections, manipulating, putting into practice all the machinations, issuing threats. And now, after the formation of People's Democratic Party in 1999, we actually institutionalized these machinations. You know, one of the youth activists of People's Democratic Party was arrested during that period. And there was a hue and cry in the national media that it is a politically motivated thing, and Mr. Falana has been arrested only to muzzle the voices, only to push the so-called mainstream political parties to corner. Nobody actually tried to go to the genesis of the problem, what has happened and what is happening in Kashmir. That political party, headed by Mahbooba Mufti, they have created a nexus with the terrorists, with Pakistan-sponsored elements and all that. And that guy was one of the main instruments for Mahbooba in hobnobbing and harboring with the terrorists in Kashmir. And we ignored it, national media ignored it. Even there was some kind of pressure built on the government agencies to take a lenient view. When the fact remains that in South Kashmir alone, we see a pattern how the people come out to vote. It is always calculated. They don't allow the massive participation. This guy has been, now, it is now proved beyond any doubt. There are both material and circumstantial evidences which suggest that this guy, since 2010, he has been working on this project of how to use the terrorists and the separatist elements to influence the outcome of elections in Kashmir, particularly in South Kashmir. But no, hue and cry, people trying to discredit the process, trying to discredit the institutions, accusing it and abusing it like anything, that somebody, some icon has been arrested merely on the pretext that he is very close to Mahbooba Mufti, which is not the case. So the point here I'm trying to make is that things in Kashmir should now change. One, my team at Mac Letter, some of them sitting over here, very recently came out with a story. In fact, it was in a sense, it was very revealing. We have a lone so-called communist leader in Kashmir. And whole of the nation sees in him a true nationalist. Of course, he has helped a lot in early 90s when he started his political career as a legislator. In recently held elections, somebody told me that his son is mowing freely in Kulgam district, which is very vulnerable, highly infested, during the night time also, and it is something very interesting, very strange. When the contestants who are contesting the elections, they are put in security hussars and security zones. They are not being allowed to move freely, to come out of the security hussars and go for the campaigning. How his son is mowing during the night time. So we tried to investigate it, and something very startling came out. This gentleman too is on the mission of hobnobbing and harboring the terrorists. When I tried to confirm it from the state police and the intelligence agencies, they admitted that, of course, he is enjoying some kind of control over stone pelters in his area. Sandhya, you will be surprised. So if this is the situation, how you will deal with it? Actually, the main thrust should be how to draw some red lines. What is acceptable and what is not. If you don't do that, you will finally come to the same situation we were confronted with during 90s and also during the recent times, like 2016, 2010. If these red lines are not there, you can't differentiate who is the friend and who is the enemy of the nation, enemy of the country. And when you say that enemy of the nation, that it should be seen as enemy of the people of Kashmir. We need to prove it that Pakistan is not the enemy of India. I have been insisting on it that we should change this vocabulary and terminology and phraseology. People from New Delhi, North Block and South Block coming to Kashmir and Pakistan, desh ka dushman hai. No, we should be saying that Pakistan, Kashmir ka dushman hai. Only then you can change the perception. You can make a difference. The posturing should be something, it should be in a way that we need to convince the people in Kashmir that Pakistan is your enemy. It is your enemy first, and later enemy of the country. Third important thing is that the system has been intruded in Kashmir. You will be surprised. We were also working on a story where there were many instances where people quoted the polling staff abusing and accusing the voters. Polling staff actually abusing the voters, cursing them. Why did you come out to vote? And who is there sitting over in that polling station? It's a government employee. It is A, B, C, D. And who are they? We need to do the profiling. Of course, the state administration is actually taking some measures, but we need to have some kind of political narrative around this also. As far as these the killings by the terrorists are concerned, it has certainly some kind of social sanction. And where from this social sanction comes? In early 80s, actually the extremist religious groups, they had their own mouthpieces and organs. And their ideologues would keep writing in those organs and mouthpieces. Very systematically, those writers, they intruded into the mainstream media in Kashmir. They started writing opinion pieces in vernaculars, giving sermons. Some university professors were there who started writing on Islamization, not on Islam itself, not on the Sufi Islam we are familiar with, the most tolerant cult of Islam. They started writing on Islamization, they started writing on jihad, they started writing on caliphate. And it became the mainstream media. Then, because there was a huge conflict industry, the vernaculars intentionally, deliberately and conveniently allowed it to happen. पैसा आता है, मज़ा है, लीडर भी है, so they allowed it. This time, I mean, every Kashmiri is now is alleging that it is the national media who are actually instigating and provoking the people in Kashmir. Partially true. Partially true. The second part of the truth is that it is the local media who only propagated this ideology, this deadly ideology, who became actually party to this ideology, who propagated this ideology. Let me tell you something very interesting. Some 1 or 2 months back, I suppose just 2 months back, it was LET, perhaps. LET issued a threat warrant to some journals, including myself. Before that, some 2 or 3 journals were questioned by the Jammu and Kashmir, by the cyber wing of Jammu and Kashmir police, yes, for posting, that some kind of material on their social media platforms, handles. Now a terrorist organization is issuing threat to some journalists, and there is nobody to speak about it. Nobody. In New Delhi, there was none. In Srinagar, none. And believe me, we didn't talk to each other even. None among them tried to ring his other companion in this endeavor. Nobody. Yesterday we were at Raj Bhavan. A couple of journalist friends met me there. Nobody spoke about it, as if it was not a concern. When you are facing this kind of situation in Kashmir, how will you change it? So you need to do something as far as changing the mindset is concerned. And I have been suggesting that if somebody is issuing a threat from that place, if he is identifying Mr. A, let me identify Mr. B, who is collaborating with the enemy. What is preventing me from identifying Mr. B? So some measures that would actually help in addressing these kind of concerns. And fourth important thing is that every second day before these elections, every second day, terrorists would kill Mr. A or Mr. B. And it has been happening there since early 90. Police comes out with a statement that a SIT has been constituted which will investigate it. And honestly, not a single civilian killing has been investigated in Kashmir so far. If you want to break the ecosystem, if you want to break the support structure, then you need to investigate every single killing perpetrated and committed by the terrorists. Because it is not the terrorist alone who would come and kill a person. There is a support system. There is some somebody called OGW. There is somebody now who is providing logistics and all that. You need to investigate it, and that would perhaps end this cycle of violence in Kashmir. Thank you very much.